Starting live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October Hampton Roads Power BI User Group meeting. Super excited about this meeting. I'm going to pause for some planes to fly overhead.
Perfect timing.
Great start. So as always, I'll kick it off with a PowerPoint to go over our latest events and stuff, and then hand it off to our speaker. Due to time constraint, I'm going to go ahead and get rolling. I'm not going to wait for more people to come on in, but here we go. All right, so for tonight, our agenda is going over some announcements. I always love talking about some latest Power BI updates. It's hard to keep track new stuff every month, and it's easy to miss stuff if you're working on certain things and not looking at the whole scope of everything that they update. So our feature presentation, and then if you hang in on till the end, I will be raffling off an Amazon gift card, a digital gift card. So that is everything. I don't actually have any sponsors or anything. That's usually a section. But since we are virtual, there's no overhead, and that is exciting, but no need to reach out to sponsors for this event. I'll introduce myself because we had a lot of new people in the meetup over the past couple months. My name is Brian Knox. I'm the user group leader. I work for Marathon Consulting in Virginia Beach, and like many of us, I really enjoy using Power BI and wanted to share as much of it as I can, and that's really all about me. Overall, about our group, we coordinate our meetings through Meetup. If we ever go in person, and our virtual ones will always be there. For social media, we have our own website. We communicate on Twitter. There is a Slack channel that you can find on the website, and also the Hampton Road, or the overall Power BI user groups website. You can find us there. So there's a lot of different content. So we try not to, blast you all with information out of all of them at the same time. But as far as events and announcements, you can find everything on all of those, really. Since our last meeting, we had September update dropped, which the biggest thing for me was the deeper Teams integration. In addition to being able to connect items via embedding, you can now add an entire Power BI app into Teams and really experience the whole structure of Power BI, the whole online service feel within Teams. And if you already go through Teams for a lot of other things in your organization, it might make sense to kind of roll things into there. Also, Windows 7 end of support. It's been a long 10 years, but they are, I think, ending that in January of 2021, with security updates being the last thing. Smart Narratives is a really cool visual that they announced in September. It's currently in preview, like all the new features, really. But this one is sort of catching up with other BI platforms. Like Tableau has a cool visual that does this sort of thing, but really it just turns your data into a story without you having to do anything, using some machine learning. So that's pretty exciting. Being able to search workspaces when publishing. I don't know how many workspaces everyone is attached to, but it can grow quite a bit. So rather than having to scroll through a list, that was a little UI improvement. And then lots of improvements to mobile report authoring. This is one of the ones that I said I like to share the Power BI updates because it's easy to miss things. I'm not developing reports for mobile. It's just not in my client's needs. So I missed a lot of the updates to mobile, and there were a lot of overhaul as far as the development and as far as some of the features as well. On to October, they added a way to insert canvas watermarks in development. I've been doing that since I started using Power BI almost 4 years ago now, but manually and changing visuals. So now you can do that out of the box. And then Q&A visual, you actually couldn't export data from there at all. So the 3 dots section where you hit export data and send it to a CSV wasn't a function for the visuals that come out of the Q&A visual that you can insert into the report. So now those are added. Biggest one by far of the past several months, in my opinion, is the dynamic M queries for sure. This can change how reports are developed, I think. And adds a lot more power to being able to add basically a variable into your M code. If you go in and look at the advanced query editor. Automatic page refresh in the desktop. I believe this is only the Windows Store version of the desktop app, but this is a cool feature for people that want to use Power BI as sort of something that just is in a workshop or something, a splash screen where people can look at dashboards and things like that, rather than the traditional going to a location to view a report. The new icon was added. That is across all of the Power Platform. They got new logos and icons for Power BI, Flow, which isn't Flow anymore, and all those. And then being able to export your data source. The PBIDs file was added a year ago, almost exactly actually, and now you can export data sources to them in Power BI before you actually had to write your own code to generate a PBIDs file if you wanted to. And a PBIDs file is basically a template file where you can open up and it has data connections already. So that's really useful when you're sharing content with sort of non-developers who want to be able to create reports but still manage the data sources involved. On to why we're all here. I'm super excited about this presentation. When I first learned about PowerShell, I learned that I had known nothing. PowerShell can do anything, and anything that I think it can't do, it can definitely do. From SQL development to basically anything in Windows. It is an incredibly powerful tool. And Aaron Nelson is the #1 resource in PowerShell, in my opinion. And so we are super excited to hear from him, and I'll just hand it off.
All right, cool. So let me go ahead and fire this off. Thank you for those kind words. I try to be up there, at least in the top 5 of the people in the world that are in that intersection of data and PowerShell. So let's see what we can show you guys today. Here we go. Actually, I'm gonna meant to share website real quick. Let me pull this in. All right, let's start with that. If you can let me know when you can see that.
I can.
All right, great. All right, so my name is Aaron Nelson. I've been working with PowerShell. It's funny that you said Windows 7. Somewhere shortly after Windows 7 came out, I started working with PowerShell in the 2.0 phase. And at first I didn't think it could do all that much. And I was like, why would anyone use this? And then one day there was a power outage at our building, which was supposed to have dual input powers and backup generator and battery. And I had figured out how to get a backup script to back up all my databases in PowerShell, but it was like an entire page long. And I was like, man, it's a lot of work to get that done. And I was like, this PowerShell thing's going nowhere. And if it takes a full page, it's not going to happen. Then we lost the power, and the CIO, his 7 Series BMW was parked out by the generator, and I saw them pulling out jumper cables and to get the generator going. I was like, oh, this going to be a bit of a problem. But then the sysadmin came up to me and he said, you have 24 minutes of power, back up what you want to keep. And I was like, what happened to 3 hours? And he said, you have 24 minutes. So I took this PowerShell script, and there was this handy little thing called outgrid view, and I deselected things that I didn't want to back up because I only had 24 minutes. I knew I couldn't back everything up in 24 minutes. And that saved the day, and that got me started using PowerShell. So just a little funny background on how I thought it was crazy, and then was completely changed by actually, frankly, one command and one incident. So I've got to appear on my GitHub page. I am a former Microsoft MVP. I do need to disclose I am a Microsoft employee. My opinions, and I have a lot of them, do not reflect the views of Microsoft, or especially the Power BI team. I'm not on the Power BI team. I'm not on the SQL Server team. I'm not on the PowerShell team, although I do assist those folks from time to time. But I'm not on any of those teams, and I just help customers build whatever they want to with data and visualizations, and usually a fair bit of automation. If you take a look at this page, github.com/SQLvariant, you'll find that there's a little demos link there. You're going to want to check that out if you want to follow along, or if you want to pass it along to someone else. On the left here, you'll see some other information. My blog, haven't kept it up to date a lot. We just had a third kid last year, and it's been taking up a lot of time, but I'll probably get some more time to take some of these Jupyter notebooks that I'm about to show you guys and start blogging about them individually. And so I'll probably have some new stuff coming out here soon. I'm on Twitter at SQLvariant. I answer questions all the time. If you've got one, shoot it my way, especially if it's about one of the demos in here, or one of my gists, or one of my Jupyter notebooks. Hit me up with it, or you just need some help with PowerShell help on a commandlet, or just how to get things started up and running. Feel free to fire away, and I'll help you as much as I can. So as I said, on here, there's a demos link right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you can go ahead and then just clone this repo if you want all of my demos. If you don't want all of them, well, the easiest way is just clone them and then delete the ones you don't want. You can go into presentations. There's this new folder I just put out there, as you see, 18 minutes ago. PowerShell for Power BI. This is a collection of stuff I've been working on for the last 18, 20 months in there, of things to make my life with Power BI easier. One of them is just this simple one around putting argument completers to make the commandlets a little easier to work with. And actually, I don't know if I added that one into the repo yet, but I'm going to show you guys a stupid PowerShell trick here that you're actually going to love. And we'll walk you through a bit of that. However, you are going to want to use Azure Data Studio if you want to follow along, or convert these down to PS1 scripts, whichever one you prefer. But if you want to do that, you do aka.ms/get Azure Data Studio, and that'll take you to those sites so that you can go ahead and download that. If you have the latest update of SSMS, you actually already have it, because they are now packaged together starting this past month. So you can just download it here otherwise, and it's worth it, 200 and some odd %. And I'll start to show you just a few of the reasons why throughout this demo. Let's switch over now to Azure Data Studio. Hopefully it won't crash on me. I tend to push it a little further than maybe it was intended. Azure Data Studio, if you're not familiar, is the like with Visual Studio is for developers, and then SSMS is Visual Studio but for data people. So VS Code for developers, and Azure Data Studio is the same kind of thing for data people. It's, VS Code. If you take a look at the help file, help about, you'll see it's, VS Code version 1.48 as of right now. So again, here's that link, aka.ms get Azure Data Studio. I tend to do a lot of things from PowerShell 7. If you're working with Powerbi Report server, do let me know, because I've got a little bit of content for that. But that one, not all commands work on PowerShell 7. So there's some specific ones you'll only be able to use on 5.1, unfortunately. And with that, yeah, get that downloaded and play along if you want to. Some real quick things. I'm going to be doing things inside of the inside of Jupyter Notebooks, which is what this is. So up here we've got a markdown cell, just like on the docs pages or anything like that, or up on GitHub. And then I've got code cells. So if I need to install my module, I can just come in here and hit this button, and it's going to run this for me. I'm in the PowerShell kernel when I'm doing this, and it will go ahead and execute it and run it. It doesn't have any kind of interactivity, so if it's something that needs a prompt, like, are you sure? You have to give it the force, because there's no way to be interactive with it. So typically you just say install module Microsoft Power BI Management, and then you'd be good to go. But if you're actually installing it while inside this notebook, you actually need the force there. For importing your modules, you'll want to do that just to make sure you've got them loaded into your session. And I think there's something like 8 modules out there. I've got a little header of what we're going to go through tonight. Not sure that we'll get through all of it. This session is a work in progress. Very thankful that I even have this chance to go ahead and do this, because I put together this stuff last year, did an internal presentation at Microsoft with this information, sent it out to everyone there. And then if it wasn't the next day, it was the day after the next day, I went out on paternity leave and haven't really presented this session anywhere since then. And it's a lot of information that I've spent quite a bit of time getting together and want to help get out there and let everyone know about. So I'm very thankful for Brian for reaching out to me and setting this up. With that said, it's still a work in progress, so there's going to be some rough edges, so you know, but we'll clean them up. That's the great thing about GitHub. Well, you can tell me something's broken, and I can go fix it, and a couple hours later, a couple days later, we'll have the fix out there. So I'm just also bringing up the PowerShell prompt here. When you're in Azure Data Studio, it actually looks nothing like this originally. The color theme comes in with something like dark mode like this. And I was actually kind of a bit of a fan of the PowerShell ISE. So I like to install the PowerShell extension right here. And sorry, from the extensions over here. Just go down there, find PowerShell, install that. That'll give you the code completion, auto completion, tab completion kind of stuff that you're going to want for a lot of the things. And it also gives you the color theme that I tend to use, which is PowerShell ISE. And it also gives you this PowerShell integrated console, which is how you can interact with the script like you tend to be used to with PowerShell ISE. All right. So some quick cool things about PowerShell. It's got this little what if thing. So I don't know if I've actually got the latest version of PowerShell. So I can go ahead and run that, and it will go out there and check and say, hey, does Aaron have the latest version of PowerShell? And if I do, then it actually says nothing, which I wish it would tell me you're good. But I'm actually running the command update module, and what it's telling me is it wouldn't do anything because I'm up to date. However, on the flip side, if I am not up to date, then it will go ahead and tell me to download the latest version. One more thing, every once in a while, these Jupyter notebooks, as cool as they are, they hang on some of the easiest commands in the world. and you end up having to do them manually. So I'm just running them down here in the PowerShell integrated console to give you all a look at that. And wow, that's actually taking a long time. There we go, that's working. So it's telling me that yes, it found there's at least a few of the packages are in fact out of date, and that I should go update them. And I will go ahead and do that in just a minute. One little housekeeping tip also, there is a PowerShell kernel who's recently updated, but I don't know if it installs itself automatically. And let me just see what I've got. PowerShell. Oops. Checking myself out on how fast I've got 1.3. Okay, so let me just manually install this 0.1.4. That's gonna, that little lag issue where I've kicked it off and it is not completing. Hasn't been completely fixed in that newer version, but it has been definitely worked on. So hopefully that'll clear itself up if I can go ahead and get the download. Yep, there it is. So 0.1.4, that's the best version as of right now. And it looks like you might need to do that manually. So let me just close that one real quick. And I'm going to open it back up. I'll tell you about this stuff over here in just a second. There we go. Installed. Let's try that one more time. It worked this time, but it didn't give me the feedback, which is interesting. So let me just do one more thing. See if it finds it. So anyways, if you've installed these modules previously, always do check every month or so to make sure that you've got the latest up to date. And then there we go. That's what I was expecting. Now it's coming back telling me, yeah, you're not up to date. So to fix that, I would just pull off this what if and then run again and go ahead and update it and get the latest version, latest updates to it. And I think I'll just leave it like it is for now and just start walking you through a couple things. To get you the lay of the land, just run this get command. Actually, let me bump up the size just a little bit, make it a little easier to read. Get command module, then say Microsoft Power BI Management with a star, and run that, and that'll give you a list of commands. Ooh, the lag is back. Let's try that one more time. And I tend to run that, kind of every couple of days on whatever module I'm working with, because I can't remember all this stuff. It's just there's stuff out there and it's changing all the time, and I don't work with every module every day. I mosey around from one to another, and to be able to figure out what's out there, sometimes I'll do this get command, which would tell me all the ones throughout the module, but sometimes I like to see it a little differently, and I'll just pipe it to out grid view. And this helps me, this usually fires up this little grid result that I can then take a look at. I just realized it's not showing it to you on that screen. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Gives me a little grid and allows me to see what the commands are. So if I'm working with something where I need to work with a report, I could filter it down to which ones have reports in the name. If I'm looking for one that is for a workspace, I can find out which commands are out there for a workspace. And let's say I need to work with a data flow. I can find out that there are, in fact, 3 commandlets for working with a data flow. So let's move back to PowerShell ISE, or sorry, Azure Data Studio. So it's just to give you a little lay of the land, how to find things yourself. When you're using these commandlets, what you want to do is you want to do login Power BI. I've already done that in this session, and so, or at least I hope I have. And so I should be able to do things like get Power BI workspace, and I'll pipe it to FT or format table, and tell it to auto size, and just tell it to print out and give me a nice list. So this tells me that I'm using my new Microsoft demo account, and I've got one workspace out there called QA, and that's it. So as you get into certain commands, you're going to find out that sometimes they don't have the best auto completion. So like if we do get -Powerbi Report, and we say, I want, maybe I'm looking for all the ones in a particular workspace, and so I want to do workspace. I want to tab complete that. I'm not sure how well you can see that. The option to give me is workspace ID, which is one of these GUIDs, and I don't memorize GUIDs very often. And then the other one is workspace, but ironically, that workspace actually means the workspace object, kind of like if you're familiar with SMO, it'd be like a database object or something like that. This is a workspace object. It's not a workspace name, which is quite confusing. But basically, long story short, yeah, if you try to type in QA, last time I checked, it wouldn't come back with you. It doesn't find QA. And you can see right here, it's saying, cannot convert this string to a Microsoft Power BI workspace. What does that mean? Well, they're expecting you to actually pipe in a command into here. So that'd be equivalent to saying get -Power BI workspace, and then saying -name is QA, and then you pipe that with the pipe symbol here into get -Power BI report. And then it would go and get you all the reports in my workspace, and it works just fine. In fact, it automatically binds that workspace object straight over, so I never even have to tell it about the workspace. It just does it automatically for me. So because I don't remember GUIDs, and I don't always remember to start with the Power BI workspace and then pipe in, and various other places where this is kind of annoying to me, I went ahead and threw together a couple argument completers, and I put them into a gist up in GitHub, and I'll just show you how to do one of these real quick. So what you can do is file new notebook, or right into your whatever PowerShell editor you like. You can do invoke. And you need to make this a PowerShell. Invoke -Web Request. There we go. And then we can just give that URL to it, and then dash out file. And then we can say C:\temp, and say PBI argument completer, and you see I've already created one. I'll just call this one 2. But this little command will actually go ahead and download it from that GitHub page for me, and put that file down on my hard drive so that I can go ahead and use it. And these things are extremely useful. I'll go ahead and fire one of these up for you. Actually, I'll leave one up for a little bit. Let's see. Coming over here to on the left-hand nav, you should probably see one called Notebooks. It'll allow you to see your notebooks. If you went ahead and downloaded the entire repo, you can hit this little button that says Open Notebooks in a folder, and then just point it to that folder full of notebooks, select the folder, and it will import everything that's in there. And let's see, export. Looks like that one is not in there yet. So I'm glad I didn't close it yet. We can do that one more time. This time, add that a little bit. This Invoke Web Request is actually, you can do an Invoke Web Request, easy for me to say, where you can do Invoke REST method, and it'll do the same thing and allow me to pull this down. And the reason I point out the REST method one is that one's actually really important when you run into the areas where there's actually not a command out there for Power BI yet. And you end up having to post a REST method or do something to make up for some of the gaps in the commandlets. That's just the lay of the land right now. There are new commandlets added every once in a while, but sometimes you have to fill the gap and you have to use Invoke REST method. So it's not one of the commands that I usually love using, except I kind of did this mental thing where it's like, this is the easiest way to download files off the internet and get them straight to my hard drive using Invoke REST method. So this is how I remember it now. And now I feel like it's less painful to use it. So, because I'm not a developer, I'm not into this whole REST API thing, but I do have to use it all the time. Like I'm sure some of you probably already use it more than I do. So that's a very, very brief introduction to that one. Let's see if I can actually pull that one in. So that would have been, what did I name this one? Power BI argument. So now it looks like it didn't seem to open it up. So let's go over here real quick. Right, it's at PS1. Of course it would. Power BI argument completers. And looks like it didn't. Oh, sorry, I copied the wrong URL. Raw, always do the raw. For that one. Do that one more time. There we go. And I bet if I go over here now, I'll have a much better looking. There we go. So what do you do with argument completers? You just kind of put them in your profile if you want to, and go ahead and use them every time you launch. If you know you're going to be working with Power BI commandlets that often, pretty simple. I'll give you a breakdown of one. I'm saying for any time that there's a parameter called workspace, that's the one where it wanted the workspace object, not a workspace name. I kind of fake it out by giving it some completion text and then saying, hey, I'll go figure out what that workspace is for you, and I'll look it up by name. So there's also workspace ID. I do something similar for you. There's report. I help you autocomplete that one on this one that's called Copy Power BI Report, which is actually really important in if you ever want to copy a report and not overwrite the connection string that it's got connected to its workspace. And hopefully I'll be able to get to that one. So anyways, you just take all of these and run them into your Power BI session. And then once you do that, when you do commands like get Power BI workspace, and you say, sorry, not Power BI workspace, get Power BI report. And I say workspace, oops. I can go over here and there we go. Sorry, that probably happened way too fast. The tab completion went and looked and found my workspaces. Try that one more time. And it found that I've got one called QA, one that I've got called All Company and one that I've got called Microsoft Demo Account. So QA is the one I want. So I just right arrow over, hit enter, and it puts it in there for me. This is just a cheap way to make it easier so I don't have to remember all this stuff. I came up with the best way I could figure it out. I'm not a developer. I just tried to make it so it works. And then we've got some tab completion there. Same thing should be for, actually, let's go ahead and do that again. If we do dash to report, no, we don't have ID. Probably don't have ID. Let's try. I did find it. No, that was fake. Let's try name. No, fake again. Don't worry about that. But these will save you some time, and most importantly, they'll keep you from making as many typos, which will drive you insane sometimes. So I highly recommend that you take a look at them, give them a whirl, and potentially add them to your profile. Now, so far, I've just kind of told you about ways to get up and running the way I do it. You can do it with the ISE if you want, or VS Code. And those are both valid, but those aren't how I would choose to do it. Just because there's so many other, I usually am working with SQL or something else in here. So before I go on to some more of these demos with actually using the commandlets here, I just figured this might be a good time to stop and see if there's any questions about what we've covered so far.
So I didn't mention this at the top of the hour, but you can go into the event Q&A and enter any questions for us to review, but there aren't any so far. All
right, well, we'll give them another minute. Won't go too much deeper into this before I'll stop again. Please do ask questions. Love to have this interactive and try and get you through and into working on this stuff, because I find this stuff to be all very helpful. We'll go back to that list of things that I have for being able to pull and do, and things that I've solved for you. One of them is the Office 365 audit logs. I'm happy to show you that, but I have to tell you to take my word that it works, because I just sent up this tenant yesterday and I don't have enough activity to make it realistic. Exporting the Power BI workspace, details and access info, we can do that. That's what we can look at next if you want. Copying a Power BI report, downloading Power BI reports from one workspace, uploading them to another. If any of you have a strong preference on this, let me know. Again, since I just set this up yesterday, I did not get back into setting up my gateway. If you want, we can step through the commands, but I can't prove to you that it works because I don't have a gateway up and running just yet. Anyone got any preferences on what we look at next? If not, I will probably step into maybe copy Power BI workspace items. Seems like a decent one to work with. So when you're out there looking at Power BI workspaces, some things you should know is that you can, if you're the workspace admin, you can go ahead and look at everything, although it tries to convince you not to do more than 100 workspaces at a time. And then if you do go ahead and pull in information, you can tell it you're that super user and that you want to pull up extra amounts of that information. I'm starting to think that this one is actually mislabeled the copy Power BI workspace items, fortunately. But let me see, I've probably got another one. Yeah, let's look at this one. Export Power BI assets. This one looks more complete. There we go. So you can throw the scope organization and then say, that'll say, hey, I am the Power BI admin. And that'll give you additional info. If you don't tell it that, it will just run it and get you back a smaller scope of what you're looking for It won't go to some extra things, and I used to have this stuff fairly well memorized. I can't spit it out off the top of my head now, but there are some additional things, like about the data set or whatever, that it will pick up if you tell it you want the organization level details versus you leave that out altogether, meaning you just say, you just don't put in the scope at all. The all that I was telling you about, that means go ahead and get me all the workspaces. Otherwise, as I mentioned, it'll try to prompt you to only stick with the first 100 comes across. One of the things I put together here is just going through and getting all your Power BI data sets. I've had plenty of customers ask me how to get, they need governance data on their Power BI tenant. They need it all downloaded. They need to compile it with something else. In several other cases, I actually need to not only download it, but I need to feed it into some other data system so that they can combine it with their other governance data. So I went through quite a bit of work figuring out how to do that and how to do it as efficiently as possible. And I've stepped through here. This one is getting the Power BI data sets. I use a module called Import Excel to be able to export this straight to an Excel workbook. You could export it to CSV. You could export it straight to a SQL Server database if you want to. Export Excel is a very handy command to have in your back pocket. It's, again, from a module called Import Excel, and it allows you to either import data from Excel or export data to Excel. And you do not have to have Excel installed from wherever you're running this commandlet. You can put this up on a server and it'll run and be able to import from an Excel file with just the one module. And to do that, just not to get too far off track, you just do install module, import Excel, and just run that, and you're good to go. And who knows, I probably don't even have the latest version. See if I do. What if? One of the very cool things about doing it with Excel as opposed to putting it out to a CSV file is that I'm telling it what the name of the file is here, and then I'm saying create a worksheet named datasets. And then on this one, I'm going to the same file, and I'm saying reports, and putting it into a separate tab. So I'm actually consolidating all my information into a single Excel workbook that has all the tenant information together, instead of having a whole bunch of different Power BI modules that, Power BI CSVs that I then need to, put together maybe in a zip file and move along, or whatever I need to do. So, but again, CSV does work. You can also go check in and get all the information on your data flows, and also on your data sources, and the data sources of your data flows. And I figured out how to get all that stuff together for you. You should be able to run this, and it should work just fine. If you run into trouble, shoot me a note, register an issue on my GitHub repo for this, or comment on the gist file, however you feel like doing it. And I'll try and help you out if we need to make some changes here. So far, I've had really good success with this. Took a good while to figure out how to do this consistently. And I feel like it's, at least the last time I used it, worked really well. So hopefully that would work for you all as well. Any questions on picking that up, getting those tenant pieces of information down?
No questions posted.
All right. So then another thing to show you is this Get Power BI report. As we're doing this, if I wanted to, instead of pull this down, just the data set information about it and record it into Excel, I could use this Get Power BI report as it loops through every single one of the workspaces in there, and I could be, downloading those Power BI reports just the same if I needed to make an archive for a version control situation. Very, very similar situation that you'd go through to be able to do that. So let's see if I can swap over to another one of these. See. Audit logs, data flows, workspace item. Here's one of my favorite ones to show folks, which is copying a Power BI report and moving it to another location without overwriting the data set. So if you think of the situation where you've got a report, it connects to a SQL server, maybe it's in a dev workspace, and when it's in the dev workspace, it connects to the dev SQL server. Or when it's in the QA workspace, it connects to the QA SQL server, and when it's in the prod workspace, it connects to the prod SQL server. So if you're in a situation where you've got a report where you've only made visual changes, no updates to the data model, and you only want to propagate the visual changes, you don't want to overwrite the connection, you don't want to rebuild the data set, you just want to update those visuals. It is completely possible to do that. You need 4 things to make this work. You need the workspace that you're getting it from, in this case, maybe a QA workspace, the workspace you're going to, maybe a prod workspace, and then the name of the report in the QA workspace and the name of the report in the prod workspace. Probably the same name, no guarantee that it has to be. And then when you run this copy Power BI report command, you can tell it what report you're going to work against, your source workspace, your target workspace. This will all be filled in for you automatically just by providing those 4 pieces of information there. The target report, and we're going to grab the data set ID off of it, and we're going to provide that to the target data set ID, and that basically tells it preserve that data set and don't override the production report connection. I can't tell you how many times I had deployed a report from QA to production only to then realize I now had the production report pointing to QA data, and I had to go fix that very quickly. So this simple 5 lines of code right here will save you from running into that issue. You can then remove the Power BI report that was originally there. Afterwards, you can, because it's going to make a copy of the report, so there will be 2 reports with the same name. There's also another option on here, I forget what it is, but there's another one of these parameters where I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but it'll allow you to, when it runs into a collision and notices that there's a report there, you can actually tell it to just go ahead and overwrite. I'm a little bit more cautious and kind of want to see the report is there and working before I go delete the old version. But if I felt like I've got pretty good hardened process and I've got like 30 reports I got to do, I'd probably take the choice of going ahead and forcing the overwrite right away. Any questions on that?
None on that, but we did have a different question about how to view the Power BI report usage metrics with PowerShell.
Power BI report usage metrics. All right, let's see if I've got that one. So that one you would have to be a tenant admin. And workspace items, assets, audit logs. That one is one that probably comes off of the audit logs. I am currently working a lot with Power BI Report Server at the moment, so I have a lot of that fresh in my head, and some of the stuff about where to go to grab stuff with the Power BI commandlets themselves is a little rusty in my head, but I'm pretty sure you pick up the O365 audit logs and then you can grab the information out of there. See power details and access info. This one is interesting, the one that I linked to here. because this one pulls in the who has access to a report kind of information. I think that's actually in the one that I showed earlier. But let's go to the usage metrics real quick. So that would be export Power BI audit logs. So there's a couple ways you can go ahead and get this information. There's one called the search unified audit log commandlet. That's the old way of doing it. If you can avoid doing this, avoid doing this. It takes more permissions than the newer commandlet, which is get Power BI activity event. It takes a very particular format of the year, month, day, time, hours, minutes, seconds. And I've already figured all that out for you. And I put it together. This is one of the stupid PowerShell tricks. If we take we'll copy this, but also just real quick show you. Oh. Here, if you want to count from 1 to 5 in PowerShell, 1.5 does it for you and it spits it out. If we do 90.1, that counts down from 90 to 1. So basically, that's one. Your audit logs out there are 90 days worth. So we're starting at day 90, then going to 89, 88, 87, and so forth. And so I build a file for you for each day because I figure you might potentially have more events than can fit into a single JSON file. And just put that all together for you, put in a nice year, month, day of the file, and then you can import that yourself. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with Resurad, who runs a blog down in New Zealand and has some fantastic Power BI content. He actually worked with me to get this working for his blog post, and then I took it a little further once the new commandlet came out and made it so that it works with the new way as well. The reason I mentioned Reza is if you want to pull in those metrics of who's been using the reports the most. So I recall he put together a blog post that tells you how to ingest this information and find that information inside of there. So definitely go give that a look. If you go to his blog, just search for PowerShell. He only has 1 or 2 posts, makes it really easy to find. So that should get you going on that one.
There is a question on whether or not you use the same scripts for Power BI Report Server.
Not even close. So great question. Power BI Report Server, you use a completely different module. Do have a little bit of one here. Doesn't really tell you what you need to know, but hold on. Where is it? Performance Dashboard Reports. So there is a module called Reporting Services Tools. That's how you do it. You just use, it has a command, do a little quick, well, on the fly demoing. So get dash command dash module, and then we say Reporting Services Tools. And it'll give us our nice list of commands there. And there's this one down at the bottom called write, rest, rest, a catalog item. That one will write the report for you. Sorry, this one, rest catalog item. That'll do a Power BI report so that you can upload all your reports. If you wanted to do an entire folder, you could do this one. You just point it to the folder, it'll upload everything for you. It does not organize how it deploys things when you do it that way, and just puts it all into the same folder on the server. That's kind of good, but also if you're used to a structure where data sources go in their own folder and the reports go into a different folder and then they point, then that's not going to work. If you're that latter person and you're used to deploying from like a SSRS kind of project, and you need to deploy some SSRS assets and your Power BI report server reports, I actually did write a command not too long ago. Oh, whoops, sorry, I thought this was going to be it. 2 commands. One of them is get dash rs deployment config. Oh, sorry, we got to switch this over to PowerShell. RS deployment. Or make sure it knows which module we're talking about. And then let's see. Get RS deployment. Come on, autocomplete for me. Deploy int config. And it's not one autocomplete for me. Then for this command, you would just give it the location of the deployment configuration file. That's basically the RTP project file. And then, as you probably know, in Visual Studio, you've got your deployment options of where you can deploy things, and you tell it which one of the different options you want to pick. That might be like, there's one called the other parameters config to use, and that might be like release, and then it'll pick that one. I also put in there an out grid view option for just allowing you to pick it. Once you have that picked, you can then take that information. You do need to add the report portal onto it, and then you can do publish rs, publish dash rs project, I think it is. Let's take a look. There it is. Publish rs project. And here's the other one, get rs deployment config. Those are the 2 commands there. And that will show you how to be able to, that'll allow you to deploy your project. We can just kind of make it a little bit easier on us. See if it'll actually pick it up. So get dash help. Anytime you need to know about commandlets, run get help. In this case, I'm looking for the examples. And I want the example of this particular commandlet, get rs deployment config. Run that, and see, it doesn't seem to be picking it up. There it goes. Hey, finally woke up. Gives you some examples of how to use this, and you'll see down here a couple different ways that you could, depending on your coding style, put it together. Then you can also do the other one, publish rs. And rs project, publish rs project. And this is the important part where you have to do this add member, and then after that, everything will work nicely. You have to add that report portal because I use the REST commandlets, and it'll deploy everything for you. While we're talking about RS, I'll just go ahead and throw in one that no one's asked for yet, but maybe they were already thinking. What if you had Power BI reports on RS, PBIRS, Power BI Report Server, and you wanted to move them to the Power BI service? You would just do out-RS folder content, for example, is one of the commands out there on that module. You give it a path of wherever you want to write it. And you can then, that'll take all of your Power BI Report Server reports and output them. Obviously, you probably want to just pick up only the Power BI PBIX files out of there, and you can then deploy them to the Power BI service. And to do that, you would just do a quick simple dir filter on the star.pbix. Then pipe that onto a little for each. Then in between the for each, we just run a command out of they're called new Powerbi Report, which sometimes is a little confusingly named, but that's how you would be able to upload a report. So if I've got a spot that I want to do that, that's all I got to do to be able to make that happen. And then on top of that, same kind of thing, you'll see if I want to not even do it from Power BI report server, but I want to be able to pull it from one workspace and move it to another, do a similar pattern of just going out there and get the Power BI report and give the workspace, do that little trick I showed you where we end up pulling all the reports from the workspace and then send that to, I forget the name of the one off the top of my head. So let's just call the audible and do a quick get dash command on Microsoft Power BI management. Let's not do the grid view this time. And let me help you out one more time on this one to make it, we get this wall, there's a lot of commandlets. It's like, that's great, but I'm only looking for ones that have to do with reports. So I say the noun PowerShell works in a verb-noun naming convention. So the verbs here on the left and the nouns are here on the right. So I want to know everything that I can do where the noun is report star, report star. Here they are, copy, export, get, new, and remove. So it'd be export Power BI report if I wanted to download them. Going to that example, that would be potentially get Power BI with the workspace, Power BI report with whatever that workspace is, QA, as I mentioned earlier, and then pipe that on over to export if I wanted to do it that way. That would allow me to export all my reports out of a workspace. And again, I could go through every workspace using one of the patterns in one of those other ones that I showed you about getting the workspace assets. I could use this kind of same pattern. If I wanted to download every single PBIX file in my entire tenant, just do this exact same kind of thing here. And I would just, put in another loop level, take all of this, this down one level in the loop structure and do a for each on this one. And depending on how many reports you have, 10 minutes later, an hour later, you've got all your reports downloaded. So just to be technical, it would be curly here. And here. And would also pass in this workspace, dollar workspace here. So there we go. That's how we could download every single Power BI report throughout our entire tenant if we wanted to do so. Any more questions?
No new questions so far.
You guys are too quiet. Come on. I feel like I'm not inspiring you. All right, so let me just do a little recap here. Let's see if I've got the right. I don't think I'm sharing the right thing. Let me try that again. What on earth is it doing? Killing me, teams. One last try. If it doesn't work, then we just go back to the notebook. How about that time?
I see it.
Yay! All right, so again, this is out on GitHub. Everything that you saw here, I'll even update the one that I was just working on with that demo. So my blog's out here. I'll start walking through some more of these in the near future, one by one. But to get to these, go to demos and presentations, PowerShell for Power BI. And again, download that entire folder. And in Azure Data Studio, just open up as a folder. So let me show you that one. Trying to see if I can do it fresh from scratch.
I just published the demos link in the Q&A as well for everyone.
Wonderful. Let me see if this works. So open up a fresh session, and that pinning did work. Okay, cool. If I want to open up that folder full of notebooks, just hit the file folder button and come over here, get that PowerShell for Power BI folder, select that, and then it'll show you all those. I'll get these organized into a proper Jupyter book later, but for now, no sense making anyone wait. These are out there. You can come in here with this getting started one. And again, that takes you to the links for installing PowerShell and telling you how to get to the gateway module and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to get feedback from y'all on how I could improve these, make them easier to follow, easier to understand. You know, I've been doing this so long, it all makes sense in my head. It seems so easy, but it's not always that easy. So it's great to get feedback. And, you know, it took watching over the shoulder of a coworker to realize I needed to add -force here because they didn't already have it installed. And just small little things like that I forget. So would love to get the feedback from y'all and find out how I can improve these and what other demos you'd like to see. Happy to build some demos and get them out there, make it easier for people to work with PowerShell and Power BI.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. We can still see if there are any questions trickling in, but
Absolutely. Yep.
Just wanted to let everyone know, as far as the raffle goes, I don't get attendee information until after the event is over. So if anyone wants to enter the raffle to win an Amazon gift card, then just send an email to HRPBIUsergroup@gmail.com, and then you'll be entered. We had a couple comments, but no questions so far. So really enjoyed the presentation, and another one saying that they were able to download everything and follow along as we went.
Thank you, whoever you were, for going to that trouble to try it out. Thank you. That's exactly what I've been doing. That's the first person who's actually given that feedback where they actually not only downloaded it, but actually went through. Thank you. That's
shout out to Dimitri there.
Who was that?
Dimitri.
Dimitri. Thank you, Dimitri. That's why I put these things out there. If you guys want to learn about, Docker containers, I've got I'll just share real quick. In that same presentations folder, you'll see that there's another one of these Jupyter books for, oh, sorry, not that one, for doing Docker containers. This one's a formal Docker, Jupyter book. It's pretty well laid out and should step you through nicely. So, and then there's if you really like these Jupyter books, I did an intro to Jupyter notebooks. You'll need to do the same folder trick of opening it, but steps you through how to do it. So these things are the wave of the future, and you can now pass parameters into them. So that's really going to change things on the way how people can automate things. So thank you, Dimitri, for trying it out and following along. That was great feedback.
And I just posted the email address in the Q&A as well.
All right. Excellent.
All right, we will close out here. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we will post what our next meeting will be. Thank you again, Aaron. This was excellent.
Thank you. Glad to do it.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Talk to you later.